500 murdered and missing women in Canada. There is a list of these 500 murdered and missing Indigenous women. Indigenous people make up 2% of the Canadian population, but 50% of the people killed at the hands of the police every year are Indigenous people.
Still smoldering barricades were removed this morning from one of southwestern Ontario's busiest highways. Kettle and Stony Point natives decided to remove roadblocks from Highway 21 after meetings with band leaders and Grand Chief Ovid Mercredi.
We got enough bloodshed now. I'm scared there's going to be more bloodshed if it don't come down.
On Sunday, March 22nd, 1998, in Tsuut'ina Reservation in Alberta, RCMP officer Dave Bowler takes a shotgun out of his car and kills Connie Jacobs and her 9-year-old child, Ty Jacobs. Connie had been refusing to let her children go into care. Ty ran around the house that day, yelling, "Leave us alone." Within days, Bowler is cleared by 7 white judges. Within months, he gets a raise and is promoted to sergeant.
I was given a message this morning, not too long ago, that there's a raid going on in Burn Church right now. My chief's been arrested. Many of the other fishermen have been arrested. More of our boats have been seized. Our supporters out on their boats had their boats swamped. They've been arrested. Some of our warriors right now are about to defend the wharf on which we send our boats on. There's a talk that RCMP is about to go and raid them now.
We take every precaution to make sure that people aren't hurt. But the fisheries officers have a job to do out there. They have to remove traps that are illegal or unauthorized, and they'll continue to do that. Those instructions that go to them are from me and from the department. They're carrying out their responsibility, and they'll continue to do it.
They say we have the freedom of assembly. They say we have those basic fundamental freedoms, and when we try and exercise them, this is what happens. They arrest our people, they handcuff them, they pepper spray them, they throw them in jail.
And then they kill them! Come on!
Get back.
Shoot! Shoot! Fucker!
Get him out of here!
Shoot!
With the confrontation between the First Nations people and the Government of Canada, clearly the issue is still about the land and resources, and the fact that there is over 1,000 land claims in the system right now, where the Indigenous people end up sitting before a government panel to determine whether or not the land or the rights of the Indigenous people is valid, and that is being determined by a country that voted against the United Nations Declaration on Indigenous Peoples' Rights. It is very clear that the issue is in terms of land claims and confrontations. It has always been the issue of the land. Canada, being the second largest country in the world, the Indigenous people are still struggling for a proper land base. In fact, they occupy less than 1/4 of 1% of the land base in Canada. It's grotesque in terms of the amount of land that was taken from the Indigenous people. There is a national call for the First Nations people, the Indigenous peoples, to stand together, and for a national day of action to drive home this impending crisis that may include railway blockades. The security of Canadian exports into the United States is something that can be no longer ignored. Human rights violations are not an issue simply for other nations like Russia or China. The violation of Canadian First Nations rights are a regular occurrence in Canada.
I just want to say, Anine, I'm very angry and I'm very hurt and disappointed at the way our people are treated when they come to this place that is ours. This land is ours. We never gave up the right to this land when we signed our treaties. This friggin' government doesn't even live up to our rights. This is why we're doing what we're doing. And we have to continue to do this kind of stuff. We gotta wake up and start fighting with these friggin' bureaucrats.
Native protesters went on a rampage yesterday in IPPERWASH Provincial Park. A rebel splinter group is still in the park, claiming it is the site of a sacred burial ground.
Confrontations have become more aggressive on the First Nations side in terms of direct action. The confrontation have been that the Indigenous people, the people themselves, are starting to tell the chiefs, "We are not waiting for you any longer, and we are not going to wait for a system that does not work. We are not going to wait the average 27 years that it takes to settle a land claim. We are not prepared for that. We are not going to allow the poverty to continue. We are just going to take back our land, and that's what has been happening in Caledonia. What happened in IPPERWASH, where Dudley George was shot to death by police. That is what has been happening in Grassy Narrows, where clear-cutting is being opposed directly by blockades. That is what happened in Gustafson Lake, one of the largest police actions ever in the history of Canada. At Oka, where the town of Oka wanted to extend its 9-hole golf course to 18 holes over a known Mohawk gravesite. Human rights are an issue in Canada. China is projected to have a population increase of 161 million more people by 2020. In India, the population will increase by close to 300 million people, with both the Chinese and Indian communities booming at close to a 10% yearly growth rate. Canada's northern resources will become premium in a world that will be running out of accessible resources. Americans will have more competition for access to Canadian resources. In the far north, as global warming affects the Northwest Passage, cutting 7,000 kilometers for imports from the Far East, the political status of Canada's 2 million square miles of land, guarded by less than 100,000 people, will become a world issue. For now, the Indigenous people of the North, who make up the majority of those 100,000 people of loyal Canadians, the question is, how long are they willing to see their resources flow south, with limited benefit to them? If Quebec finally succeeds in gaining international sovereignty, will the North remain Canadian? 230 years ago, 13 states in America declared themselves independent of England and its despotic rulers. To take such drastic action as to declare independence meant that Americans needed to justify those actions. Thomas Jefferson wrote, "Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty, to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security."
Instructions that go to them are from me and from the department.